There are some stories that only God can write. Stories where deep pain becomes the soil for divine revelation. Mine began with loss. I lost 2 babies through miscarriage before I ever held them. The ache of that emptiness followed me for years. Later, when my son, my only living child, chose to reject me and cut off contact, it felt like the wound was torn open all over again. It was as if God had taken away every biological tie that connected me to motherhood. The silence of that loss was deafening. I remember asking God why He allowed such rejection and loss. I loved deeply, gave everything, and still ended up with empty arms. But then, slowly, God began to answer me. Not with explanations, but with people. A year ago, He brought a young man into my life. He wasn't my blood, but somehow it felt as though God had placed him in my heart. I didn't go looking for him, God sent him. As our relationship grew, I realized I wasn't just mentoring him, I was mothering him. It was a spiritual bond that couldn't be explained by logic. And then there was my cousin. I helped raise her from the time she was about 10 years old. I watched her grow, learn, fall, and rise again. Over time, our bond deepened into something that felt more than family. It became spiritual adoption. She became the daughter I never had. One day, as I reflected on all of this, the miscarriages, my son's rejection, and these unexpected divine relationships, I heard the Lord whisper in my spirit, "Now you understand how I felt when my people rejected my son." That moment pierced my heart. Suddenly, I realized my story wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. I was living a reflection of the divine narrative between God and His people. From the beginning, Israel was chosen, called God's son. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 22, God told Pharaoh, "Israel is my son, my firstborn." But when the Messiah came, His own did not receive Him. John chapter 1, verse 11 says, "He came unto His own, and His own received Him not." That rejection wasn't the end. It was the opening of a new covenant. In Hebrew, the word reject is mas, Strong's H, 3988. It means to despise, to cast away, to treat as worthless what was once cherished. That's what Israel did to the covenant, and that's what I felt when my son turned away. Something sacred had been dismissed. Yet, just like God, I discovered that rejection doesn't end love, it redirects it. In the Greek, the word for adoption is huiothesia, Strong's G 5206. It means the placing of a son, or to establish one as a child with full inheritance. In Roman culture, adoption wasn't second class. It was a legal declaration of belonging, identity, and inheritance. The adopted one became a true son or daughter. Paul writes in Romans chapter 8, verse 15, "You have received the spirit of adoption by whom we cry, Abba, Father." It's the language of intimacy and belonging. That's what God did for the Gentiles when Israel rejected Him. Through one nation's no, God extended His yes to all. Romans chapter 11, verses 11 to 12 says that through their fall, salvation came to the Gentiles to provoke Israel to jealousy. Israel's rejection became the bridge for adoption. In the same way, my own losses and rejections became the bridge for spiritual sons and daughters to enter my life. Genesis chapter 12, verse 3 reveals God's original design when He told Abraham that through him all the families of the earth would be blessed. The Hebrew word for families, mishpacha, means extended kinship, tribes and clans bound by covenant, not just blood. God always intended a family bigger than biology. When I study the scriptures with my spiritual son or speak wisdom into my cousin's life, I feel the heartbeat of God. What I once thought was the end of my motherhood was really just a divine redirection. The womb that lost 2 children became the wellspring of spiritual nurture for others. The heart that was rejected by one biological child became the home for those God sent to be loved and guided. Romans chapter 9 verse 25 captures this perfectly. I will call them my people who were not my people, and her beloved who was not beloved. My story, my losses, became living testimony of that truth. God has a way of transforming grief into grace and rewriting family through covenant love. From the Hebrew view, rejection doesn't void covenant, it reveals its depth. From the Greek view, adoption is not a substitute, it's a divine appointment. Together, they declare that God's redemptive plan never stops expanding. So if you've lost, if you've been rejected, if your heart is aching over the ones who walked away, remember this: God still writes new stories of family. He fills empty arms, heals broken hearts, and restores what seemed beyond repair. My story isn't one of loss, it's one of redemption. God didn't replace what I lost, He multiplied it.